Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. This is a demo to show you the Hasselback potato. So we're going to take these lovely yellow potatoes. These are a little Yukon Gold potato, and we're going to turn them into um, a mix between a baked potato and a kind of the crunch of a French fry. I love this dish because we get to do some fun knife skills on the potato, and then we can really use a pea pesto that we're going to create to make a really springtime dish, right? A beautiful dish that can be really a knockout dish in some ways for Easter or for any kind of Earth Day celebration or spring get together. It's just really fun. So I'm going to show you how to make all of those things today. And if this is your first time joining us for one of these demos, this is really what happens in our virtual classrooms that we have in the chef program. We do about a 40-minute lecture, so we're kind of skipping the lecture part and getting right into the cooking demo. Today we're going to do these Hasselback potatoes. So first thing I would want to do is show you how I cut these. So I'm going to tilt my camera down so you can see a little bit better. So what we're going to do is we're going to create really thin, almost potato chip size slices in this potato. And we're going to use either two chopsticks or two wooden spoons to do this technique so that we don't slice all the way through the potato and just get those chips. What we want to do is create a hinge in the back of the potato so all of the slices stay together. So, and you'll notice, right, the potato is not a perfectly flat rectangular thing. So when we start at the tip of the potato, we're going to need to control our knife so that it doesn't go all the way through, because if we did go all the way through, we would cut this off. So for the first couple of slices, you are just remembering not to cut all the way through. So let me turn this a little bit so you can see it better. And then we're using our finger as a guide to create really, really thin slices here. So we really just want these to be, like I said, the size of maybe a thick cut potato chip. And this technique was first developed in Sweden, in Stockholm. And the chef there was just trying to figure out a way to cook his baked potatoes a little bit faster. And so he just sliced them like this, and it does create I would say it does not create a shorter cook time on your potatoes, because we're trying to also get a really crisp exterior. So what we do is we're going to use some high quality fats to get that crisp exterior. But so you'll see now we have all of these little slices, these vertical slices, and it's kind of like an accordion, right? So that's what we want to do for the slicing of the potato. And you can do that on a whole bunch of potatoes, but I hear my timer, so then going off, and I just want to grab the potatoes that I've got going already out of the oven. So what you'll find is they're going to start to fan out like this, right? And as they fan out, as you cook them, they get really crispy on the outside, and then the interior gets really jammy. So once they bake for about 35 minutes, then we do some basting on the potatoes. So this is melted butter and a little bit of cayenne pepper. You could use a little bit of garlic as well to season if you'd like to, but I don't want to overpower that flavor in my my pesto. So I'm going to reserve all of the garlic for my pesto for this dish. So we do about 3 rounds of this basting. So we're getting that really crispy exterior. And you could also, if you don't want to use butter, you could use a nice high quality olive oil here as well. I'm going to put these back in. That was my third round of basting. I'm going to put these back in. I'm going to show you how to slice one more potato and then just how to track them before they go in the oven. All right, so again, so what we're doing is we're really just taking this potato, and I'll do it the same way. We've got those chopsticks. Again, we're just not going all the way through. And you can see how I've got my hand in that lobster claw position with my fingers tucked so that I'm not going to cut the tips of my fingers, but that creates this nice straight line on my knuckle that I can then use as a guide for the knife. And it gives me a little bit more of a steady hand as I'm slicing these. The other thing I'm doing to make sure I have ultimate control when I'm using my knife is that I'm using a pinch grip on it. So I'm literally pinching this part of the knife, right? I'm not gripping the handle, I'm pinching the knife, and then I'm loosely wrapping my hand around. It's almost like choking up on a baseball bat. This gives me more control for my knife. And I would say about 95% of the cuts I do, this is the hand position that I'm using for my knife. It gives you more control. You can do more precision cuts as you're doing this. All right. And even if I do, see, I have those chopsticks there to remind me not to go all the way through. As I get to the end, you can kind of do an arch grip on your potato to keep it together to get that last slice in. And then you've got these really nice accordion shapes. All right, so like I said, we do need to get these in the oven, and I'm going to baste them. I'm just going to use this loaf pan to do it, but I'm going to just drizzle a little bit of olive oil. Olive oil has polyphenols in it. Extra virgin olive oil has polyphenols in it that do not go rancid in the oven, and they're protective of it. So olive oil can be used in that high heat preparation. Especially if it's the virgin olive oil and the first pressing has more of those polyphenols. I'm also going to put a little bit of salt. The salt is going to flavor the potatoes. It's also going to draw the moisture out of the potatoes and help them get crispy. So I'm just going to roll those potatoes in that salt and oil to get them well coated. And then as you saw before, they will open up, and then we can get the fat into in between the layers a lot easier once they open up. So these would go in for 35 minutes, and then we would start our basting process. All right, so as my potatoes are finishing cooking, let's talk about how we're going to make them fancy, right? Because we have to make them fancy so everybody wants to eat. I mean, potatoes. Potatoes actually are the favorite vegetable of most of America. The potato is the favorite vegetable, but let's get some more vegetables into the rotation there. We love potatoes, especially white potatoes, because they give us serotonin. Serotonin is going to help to regulate your mood and make you feel happy. So they are a really good health food for mental health. But we can pair them with some other foods that are going to boost the health even more. And one of those foods are peas. These are green peas. They're English peas. These are raw. And you can get raw peas usually, and I find them near me in the Trader Joe's reliably. Whole Foods usually has them as well. Some of the other grocery stores don't, but if you can't find raw peas, you can use frozen peas for this recipe, no problem. Okay, so we're going to do a pesto. So we're going to use some booster foods in this pesto. The peas we love because they have fiber, and protein. Peas are one of the higher protein vegetables. And you can think about like a lot of the protein shakes will use pea protein powder because they are so rich in protein. So this is a great option for people who are vegan or vegetarian looking to get a higher protein boost from their vegetables. We're also going to add some nutritional yeast to this recipe to boost the protein. There is a protein in nutritional yeast as well as it's usually fortified with B vitamins that are only available through meat, especially B12. All right, and then we're going to also add some herbs. So we're going to add a little bit of mint to this pesto because peas and mint, classic combination, especially in England. And so this is a great fresh spring flavor. And it just adds that little bit of deliciousness to our pesto. We're going to add a little bit of dill as well, right? We can think of herbs or just super leafy greens, right? Everybody wants to get more leafy greens. Well, we can do that with herbs, and we can also get a lot of flavor. I'm also going to use olive oil, high quality extra virgin olive oil. And then these are some pine nuts, or pignoli, as they're called in Italian. They actually come from cones. And they're these beautiful little tiny seeds that we're going to use in our pesto. So I'll show you how to do all of that, as well as a little bit of mustard just to bring everything together. Mustard is an emulsifier. But what we're going to start with first is our lemon and our garlic, and I'll tell you why in just a second. All right, so the lemon and the garlic are going to, I'm going to use the acid in the lemon to mellow out this raw garlic so I don't get too much of a bite. It kind of has, raw garlic has this bite to it, right? It's kind of, sometimes if you eat it, it might repeat on you a little bit, but we can make that a little bit more mellow. I'm just going to turn on my boiling water that I need here. So we're going to blanch our peas. So we've got the garlic, and what I'm doing to it is crushing it. I'm doing this on purpose because when you crush garlic, it creates a compound called allicin. Allicin is fantastic at helping you regulate your cholesterol. So once I've crushed my garlic, it takes about a minute for that compound to activate and be potent. And it only lasts for about 24 hours in the garlic. So you can't do your garlic really in advance, right, to get the health benefits. And this is why we don't want to buy pre-minced garlic. We want to mince garlic as we are using it. And this is also a process of crushing it, right? Mincing it is crushing it. So what I'm going to do though, once I have my garlic, put it in my bowl. Should get my board scraper here. And then I'm going to add the acidic lemon juice to it. Let it soak for about 10 minutes. Like I said, this is going to take that bite out of it. It's going to make it more palatable. And it's going to prevent those garlic burps that sometimes happen with pesto. So I'm just juicing my lemon. And it seems counterintuitive, right? You think, oh, it fits in perfectly like that in my juicer, but we want the juice to go out through the holes. And we want this part of the juicer to turn the lemon inside out. so we get maximum juice from our lemon. All right. So this can hang out while we work on blanching our peas.
Chef Carrie, really quickly, there was a question on what temperature was the oven at when you put it in?
The oven is at 400.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
And I'm hearing my timer go off, so I'm going to grab my potatoes. We can see how beautiful and golden brown these are. We turn my camera to my overhead view so you can see. So we've got our potatoes here that we're just gonna let hang out and kind of cool down a little bit, but you can really see how you've got this browning and this crispness on the outside. And if you really look at that interior, it's just so supple in there and just gonna be so just jammy. But they're just these beautiful, kind of cool accordion looking potatoes. So my water is up to temperature for us to blanch. So these are my green peas, and there's a better look at them. Are we in focus here? Where are we in focus? So these peas are they're thick, right? So, but they're also not bright green. So what we want to do is make them bright green so that they retain this color and they get this really nice springtime color into our pesto. So right now you can see the peas sank, right? They're at the bottom of the pan. So we really want to make sure that they start to float. Can you see them coming up? It's like a magic trick. Peas come up to the top of the surface. And so once they're all floating, they're really going to be ready for this pesto and ready to be done. But as they come up, I like that, like my little magic fingers making these peas come up. We're going to need an ice water bath to shock them and help them retain their color. So I've got my water and my ice here. I might do too much ice. And these can go about 3 minutes, just so they're a little bit tender. I can still see we've still got some on the bottom that are coming up as we create a little space for them. But you can also do this with your frozen peas. Just they also, those are already pretty bright green and they're much more tender. So you can just really what you want to do is put the frozen peas in the water, just kind of heat them a little bit, make sure they're heated through, and then you can use them in your pesto. So, and this water was heavily salted, right? Because we want to make sure all of the nutrients in the peas stay in the peas. Okay, so how does salting the water make that happen? Doesn't salting the water just make it really salty and flavor the peas? Well, yes, it does flavor the peas, but water has this thing that happens that's an osmosis, right? So any minerals in the peas will leach out into the water unless there's enough minerals in the water to keep it like that. So to keep the minerals in the peas. So it's really makes them healthier because they retain the minerals and the minerals don't go into the water. All right, so this is pretty good for our peas. We can see that they're all floating. And so I'm going to scoop them out and you can see how much greener they are. And as we put them into the ice water bath, they're also going to really stay pretty green. And this shocking process will retain their color. If we didn't do this, our pesto might get a little bit gray. We can do this with any vegetable, the shocking process. And it's a great way to kind of par cook things too, if you're gonna use them in a stir fry. All right, let's turn off our burner, scoot this out of the way. Squeaky. All right, and then we'll bring in our food processor. So I just wanna make sure our peas are cooled down. And then I'm going to just remove this ice. And we also don't want to just leave whatever your vegetable, your blanched vegetable, in the cold water to soak forever, because that is also going to change the texture. We want to really shock them and then get them out of the water. All right, so I'm gonna remember to reserve some of my peas. All right, so we've got our peas, and I want to use some peas for the garnish. So I'm going to take out about 1/4 of a cup of our 2 cups of peas and save these to use on the plate. The rest of them I'm going to put into my food processor. And I've got my kind of like, this food processor has 2 sizes. I find it easier to use the smaller one for this amount of pesto. So if you have a small blender, this should work in that blender, or if you have a larger food processor, you might want to double the recipe to make sure your equipment's working properly. All right, so then put my lid on, and I can just break these down a little bit. And then I can start to add my other ingredients. So remember, I had these pine nuts, these pinoli nuts. So this is about 1/4 cup. And I did toast these before I, just when I had the oven on for the potatoes, I threw them on a sheet pan, toasted them up. This is just going to bring out that nutty flavor a little bit more. So classic for a pesto is to use pinoli nuts. You can also do it with any other type of nut. A walnut would be really delicious in here. The other thing that's classic for pesto is Parmesan cheese. And keeping this more in, if you wanted to make the pesto completely vegan, you can use nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast is from a yeast that's grown on beet molasses. And so that is going to be a little bit, so sometimes if you're very strict, if you're Hindu, the single-celled organism of the yeast is not considered vegan. So depending on who you're cooking for, you might just want to keep that in mind. This is the Dijon mustard. I'm going to add this as well. Like I said, this gives it a little bit more complexity of flavor because we're using the nutritional yeast in place of the Parmesan cheese. And then I'm going to add my herbs. So for the dill usually comes on these stalks like this, and I don't want these stalks in there, so I'm just going to pull them off. The smaller stalks are okay. I've done that to my whole 1/2 cup of dill. This is a packed cup, right? I've pushed it down to make sure that I've got all of my dill. So let's start running this a little bit to break it down. All right, and so I also want to make sure I've got that mint, right? So dill is also classic with peas. Dill's really grown in Eastern Europe a lot, and is a great herb from that area of the world. And the mint is going to just kind of brighten that. Again, adding that extra layer of complexity to this pesto. I'm going to add about 2 to 3 tablespoons of that. This is freshly ground pepper. And then I'm going to add my salt. This is a Himalayan salt. 2 to 3 tablespoons. Maybe that's about a teaspoon of salt to start. And then I'm going to slowly drizzle in my olive oil. This is going to help bring it all together. And don't forget your garlic and your lemon. And the olive oil is going to give this a nice body. Olive oil is great for creating heat in our body, right? It's a thermogenic food. So when we have more heat in our bodies, that means our metabolism is stronger, it's working harder, and we're burning more calories. So adding thermogenic foods like olive oil can be a great tool for maintaining weight and also just anti-inflammation. All right, so we've got this nice pesto. Let's stop it and take a look. We've got some things that are trapped up there. So I'm going to take my rubber spatula and just scrape this down to make sure everything gets nicely mixed together. All right, one more time and we should be ready. Okay, wonderful. Now, as the chef, it's up to you. If you want a completely smooth pesto, if you like it a little bit chunkier, that's going to be your decision. All right, and now let's talk about plating. So we've got our plate, and I have some edible flowers, as well as some of the mint and dill. So those herbs that we used in the pesto, I've reserved those. And then I bought some edible flowers. These you can find in the herb section, usually of grocery stores. So it'll be next to some of the herbs in the produce section. These are actually snapdragons, which are a beautiful edible. This is a variation of a marigold. And so that's kind of what's in season now. I also did see some pansies that are edible. Roses are edible. So you can really find what's in season now around you for those edible flowers. And I saw a question there about basting. So let me bring my potatoes back because we need those as well. So the question was just about basting. So what we're doing for the basting of the potatoes is we're really just taking our fat, whether you choose to use olive oil or to use butter for this recipe. And all I'm doing is I melted that fat so that it's liquid. And then I added some flavor. So to this, I added cayenne pepper. But you can add any kind of flavor that you'd like. And all basting is coating something with fat multiple times. So I did cooked the potatoes for 35 minutes after I sliced them. That opened up all of these little layers, right? It just created that openness for the potato so that it's willing to accept the fat. And so when it came out of the oven after 35 minutes, I did one layer of basting, which is just brushing that fat into the layers of the potato. So I have this is a silicone basting brush. You could use a pastry brush as well for basting. And you're just kind of getting that fat in between the layers in the potato. So you do that, and then you roast them for another 10 minutes, take them out, baste them again, cook them for another 10 minutes, baste them again, and throw them in there for the final 10 minutes. And these have done that whole process. And so now you can just put a little bit more butter on them to finish them at the end. So I'm doing that now. So these are going to be really shiny when they get plated, right? We want them to be a really shiny, beautiful potato. We're going to focus there. All right, and so so now we can take these potatoes and decide how we want to plate them. So for a party, I might plate them all on a platter. So if I were to plate them on a platter, we really want to put the sauce down first. Whenever we're cooking anything or plating anything, we want to do like a sauce layer. This is something that anchors the food to the plate. It also usually is a different color than the food. And I'm also leaving some white space as well on the plate and creating some swoops here. So I have, and I also want to plate odd numbers. So I'm going to just put 3 potatoes on here. Right, and I'm leaving some of that white space. And now I've got room as well for my garnishes. So definitely know that I want to show that this is a pea pesto. So I can do that by sprinkling some peas onto the plate. I want to also use my dill because these dill leaves are so cool. So I can do little sprigs of dill kind of nestled in the potato. And all of these garnishes, right, need to be edible, something that is enhancing the flavor, but also something that is someone would want to eat. So I'm just doing a couple of these dill sprigs, or like right on the potato. Green on anything kind of brown or yellow is usually a really beautiful pop color. I could also use some of my mint if I wanted to create leaves to anchor my flowers. Right, because again, these snapdragons are delicious. They're a little bit of a peppery flavor. And just putting, you don't need the mint, but I love mint, so I love having that kind of extra foundation for my mint. This one I'll leave without. And you can see how this is just bringing a beautiful, the color, right? It almost looks like an Easter basket. It's just, just enough. Focus there, just enough to really be a gorgeous spring Easter basket. Let's see if there's other questions. Oh, we got info on the basting. Okay, so this is like how I would plate it for as a platter. You could do more, but again, making sure odd numbers are really pleasing, because we won't just do a quick plating thing, but just like on a single. for someone, again, we want to do kind of that swoop. I like lots of pesto for this dish, right? And then we'd want to put that potato on there. And we can just do really that same thing where we've got our peas. We're highlighting all of those wonderful flavors in the dish. And it doesn't take long, and you don't want the plating to take long, because if the plating takes too long, guess what? Your food is cold. Nobody wants to eat cold food. So you have to think about speed when you're plating. You might want to warm the plate. But we really are going for something very simple, but just fun and something more unusual than you might do. All right, do we have any other questions? There we are. So we've got our single plating here, and then our more platter family style kind of plating here. And then people could just scoop and take one of these with a little bit of pesto.